You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
Want your boss to put some real action behind the rhetoric when they talk about making your workplace more inclusive? Find out how to hold their feet to the fire and demand diversity on the Diversity Dude podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Diversity Dude podcast. I'm your host, Lambert Fisher, marriage and family therapist, award-winning author, and national speaker on the topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. And for those of you who are interested in even more positive and encouraging strategies beyond what I share in podcasts like this, then feel free to check out my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, nationally recognized for the unique way in which it addresses the often difficult topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. Designed for more than just therapists, if you're a helping professional in any way, Diversity in Clinical Practice can help you meet the greatest variety of cultural needs possible for those whom you serve. And it's available in paper and audiobook versions for your convenience. And if you haven't heard it yet, I invite you to visit TED.com and check out my talk called What to Do When You Offend Someone, where I offer a positive and a practical perspective on how to navigate unintentional offenses in daily life. To date, it's been viewed over 500,000 times. Check it out for yourself, and if you're encouraged by it as well, share it with a friend. And whether it be through my one on one relationship building efforts as a therapist or my informing and empowering efforts as an author or speaker, know that my personal mission is to do my part to improve the world one strengthened relationship at a time. So, today I want to share with you an encouraging perspective on the dilemma of removing memorials that honor veterans. Since it's still Veterans and Military Families Month, I want to acknowledge and address a dilemma that recently resurfaced related to how veterans are not just supported and remembered, but also honored. Back in March, the president signed an executive order with the goal of removing so called radical DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military. One of the ways this played out was the removal of pictures and stories and on government websites, displays, and some buildings honoring the contributions of women and ethnic minorities who served this country proudly. Fortunately, there was enough backlash that some, though not all, of those efforts have been reversed. Unfortunately, efforts to accomplish the main goal have not ceased, as an American World War II cemetery in the Netherlands just recently removed displays focused on Black soldiers. Now, as this ongoing back and forth homeland battle continues, I try to create safe spaces for genuine curiosity and openness to grow. A mental health professional recently thus asked me a genuine question out of curiosity, as well as a desire to be prepared in the event that a client brought up this question in a therapy session. And they wanted to be as supportive as possible, but felt genuinely conflicted by the implications of the question itself. The question was this: not that long ago, there was public outrage at the existence of long standing statues of leaders in the Confederate Army, which led to them being taken down. And now, recently, there's backlash at the removal of DEI signs and displays at memorials. But isn't that the same thing? I know it sounds bad, but isn't it a bit hypocritical to say we can have our memorials, but you can't have yours? Now, as usual, my first goal is to express appreciation for their vulnerability and risking asking a difficult cultural related question that could be mistakenly conveying a negative feeling or belief toward a group of people. Next, though, I wanted to try to help them see how, despite the apparent similarities, there were also significant differences worth keeping in mind and expressing if they came up professionally. And just in case you find yourself feeling, or in conversation with someone who might be feeling this potential sense of hypocrisy, I would like to offer the following considerations to think about. Consideration number one: the original intent of Confederate monuments was not just to honor the dead, but also to reaffirm racist views. Some people argued against the removal of Confederate monuments in public places, explaining that the statues were mere displays of distant relatives who, despite being imperfect people, they had grown up hearing stories about them and appreciating them as a part of their family's history worth remembering. And as a marriage and family therapist, I can understand the sentiment behind this argument. I keep photo albums with photos and memorabilia from family members who are no longer with us. I even tell my children about relatives they've never met so that they'll know who and where they came from. That part I get. However, I also know that some stories are best told in the context of learning lessons, with lessons about what to emulate and what not to emulate, so as to encourage better decisions than those who came before us. And that's where many of these Confederate monuments found themselves. For many of the Confederate monuments were erected during the Civil Rights Movement, not just as a public invitation to remember imperfect family members, but as a symbol of the romanticized lost Confederacy, where, if successful, would have maintained a white supremacy and serving as an intimidation factor to African Americans by reminding them that this is still the desired goal of those who they surround themselves with. As a result, for many people, these monuments aren't just an opportunity to see random historical figures and learn about their positive contributions, but instead, they're seen as threats to their present and future well being, as if every time they see it, they hear, "You may have won, but the war isn't over. Our feelings about you haven't changed." And this monument stands as a beacon for what we wish would have happened and what we still hope to somehow achieve someday at your expense. So, on one hand, there is a similarity in the removing of symbols of honor, but the significance it conveys is quite different, which leads to consideration number two. The intent of the removal of memorials honoring women and ethnic minorities today is to erase their historical contributions altogether. When it comes to the removal of memorials honoring women and ethnic minorities, some argue that just like our statues upset you, your statues upset us, and thus they should be removed as well. The problem is that the intent and displayed message of the memorials honoring women and ethnic minorities today is not to assert DEI supremacy over those who consider themselves in the majority. The goal is to acknowledge the vital contributions of historically underrepresented and underacknowledged individuals on the country that we all live in and we know today. Sure, there are museum displays that discuss seemingly negative topics such as racism, slavery, and more, but the goal isn't to declare what everyone reading it should continue to feel and believe. Instead, it's to acknowledge that the contributions of women and ethnic minorities being honored in large part to involved overcoming significant systems of oppression in various forms. The goal being to remind everyone of what we've overcome and who helped us do it, how far we've come, and consequently, how far we still have left to go. Which leads to consideration number three. What we honor from the past should reflect what we want to promote in the present and in the future. One of the dilemmas in this hypocrisy discrepancy is the dichotomy between honoring the past or deleting it. Which one should we do? With the implication being that whichever one we decide should apply to everyone equally. That seems fair, right? However, what is truly fair is the evaluation of not just the intent, but also the impact of each situation one at a time. For those who want to preserve the memories of imperfect people in their history, as all humans are in vastly different ways, then I encourage you to consider the impact of the monuments you hope to erect and ask yourself whether the message conveyed is one that promotes healthy interactions in the present and hope for a better future, or one that promotes unearned supremacy and similarly unearned transgenerational trauma and fear of threats to people's current well being, from people continually reminded by the monuments themselves to view them negatively and not worth whatever they have. And if so, maybe you can still honor the good aspects of those historical figures in the comfort of your own family, but not on display for the masses to see. And even then, their existence doesn't have to be deleted from lists and displays altogether, just from the symbols that hold them up high and encourage discord as a result. Which is not the same with deleting the contributions of women and ethnic minorities today. These memorials serve as reminders of the values we still hold and promote today: justice, freedom, equality, which were all fought for despite facing systemic discrimination at home. Yes, they were imperfect people as well, as all humans are, but their existence and even their positive contributions to the country we live in today are trying to be removed. Sometimes, just because seeing stories of what they overcame to make those contributions reminds people of a negative period in their own families or cultural group's history. But here's the key: you don't have to erase someone else's positive efforts to avoid being reminded of negative efforts in your own family history. Instead, you can acknowledge the negative impact of what came before you and join in the effort or distancing yourself from the negative actions of the past and contributing to a better and mutually beneficial present and future. Now, some then say, exactly. And we can focus on that without the sad and negative museum pieces and the displays making us feel bad. And to that, I said, sometimes we need to be periodically reminded of how far we've come to see just how far we still have left to grow and to maintain that motivation to do so. Because the removal of those reminders often leads people to forget the need for growth still exists and then argue for the ceasing of the growth efforts that seem to be no longer needed. Why? Because we have the luxury to forget about it, while many others don't and never have had that luxury. They just experience it in silence. With all that being said, my hope for you is that you will be able to see apparent similarities between the removal of Confederate statues and the removal of women and minority veteran contributions as loosely similar, but significantly different. Not just because of which side is making the argument, but because of the differences of the impact of each. And whether or not you find yourself in a position to make a decision to or not to support either of these issues, I hope that you would contribute to the consideration of not just the expressed goal and intent, but also the actual impact on real life people. Not only that, but ask yourself, what message do you see in these memorials and what they promote about society that you want to be encouraged to live in and pursue? Hopefully, you'll be able to contribute to something that positively impacts you and everyone around you, not just for today, but for years to come. And with that, I'll say thanks again for listening to today's Diversity Do podcast. If you have any pressing diversity related questions that you'd like me to address on an upcoming podcast, or if your organization is in need of a shame free and empowering guest speaker or training on this often sensitive topic, feel free to reach out to me directly at diversitymadesimple.com. And if you found this podcast message positive and insightful, then be sure to like and subscribe so I'll know which topics you'd like me to share more on in a future podcast. And if you know of anyone else who can benefit from a positive and encouraging perspective on this often difficult topic of diversity, feel free to send them a link to this podcast so they can be encouraged as well, or share with them my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, available at Amazon.com. And don't forget to visit TED.com and check out my talk on what to do when you offend someone. I hope it inspires you and that you share it with someone else so they can be inspired as well. And as usual, I look forward to addressing as many topics as possible in future podcasts to help you improve as many relationships as possible at work, at home, and in your community. And as always, remember this: you don't need to know everything about everyone in order to have a positive impact on someone. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great day.
Tune in each week and find out how to demand and implement diversity at your job. To hear more, check out previous Diversity Dude shows on ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
Ready to go? At Metro Transit, we are. With more routes to more places, easy ways to pay, and more convenient options, we're ready to go further. Go easier. Go faster. Go, go, go. And go. We're ready to go. Are you?
Hey y'all, it's Shaletta. I'm an entrepreneur just like you, and I get it. As a small business owner, we just don't have enough time in the day to apply for grants. It's not that we don't need the money. We just don't even know how to write all the essays and all the other forms and stuff they're asking us for. It is overwhelming. But that's not the case with the Minnesota Promise Act grant. Round 2 is happening right now. If you've got a business in certain parts of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Greater Minnesota, there's more than $60 million available to help grow your company. And listen, I understand y'all's reservations because applying for grants ain't easy. That's why Neighborhood Development Center has trained staff to help you fill out the application. They've got appointments open now for you to go in and get the process started. Get in touch with them by going to mnpromiseact.org. And don't wait, because the deadline is December 14th.